I go for refuge to the Buddha, my deeply awakened mind, the living source of understanding and compassion, which must be cultivated to be known fully. I go for refuge to the Dharma, the path of mindful living, leading to healing, joy, and enlightenment, the way of peace, which must be cultivated to be known fully. I go for refuge to the Sangha, the loving and supportive community, realizing harmony, awareness, liberation, which must be cultivated to be known freely. I am aware that the three jewels are within my heart. I vow to realize them. I vow to understand living beings and their suffering. I vow to cultivate loving kindness and compassion and to practice joy and equanimity. I vow to live simply and sanely, content with a few possessions and to keep my body healthy. I vow to let go of all worry and anxiety in order to be light and free. I am aware that I owe so much to my parents, teachers, friends, and all beings. I vow to be worthy of their trust, to practice wholeheartedly, so that understanding and compassion will flower, and I can help living beings be free from their suffering. May the Buddha, the Dharma, and Sangha support my efforts. May the Buddha, the Dharma, and Sangha support my efforts. May the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha support my effort. Nathan, could you please chant the Heart Sutra?
Which Nathan?
That Nathan. He's muted. I think somebody may have to unmute.
There we go. Now I can unmute. Thank you. Namaha Prajna Paramita Hridaya Sutra. The Bodhisattva of great compassion from the deep practice of prajna paramita perceived the emptiness of all five skandhas and delivered all beings from their suffering. O Shariputra, form is no other than emptiness, emptiness no other than form. Form is emptiness, emptiness form. The same is true of feeling, thought, impulse, and consciousness. O Shariputra, all dharmas are empty. They are not born nor annihilated. They are not defiled nor immaculate. They do not increase nor decrease. So in emptiness, no form, no feeling, no thought, no impulse, no consciousness, no eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, mind, no form, sound, smell, taste, touch, or objects of mind, no realm of sight, no realm of consciousness, no ignorance, nor extinction of ignorance, no old age and death, nor extinction of them, no suffering, no cause of suffering, no cease from suffering, no path to lead out of suffering, no knowledge, no attainment, no realization, for there is nothing to attain. The Bodhisattva holds on to nothing but prajna paramita. Therefore, the mind is clear of any delusive hindrance. Without hindrance, there is no fear. Away from all perverted views, one reaches final nirvana. All Buddhas of past, present, and future, through faith in Prajna, Paramita, attain the highest perfect enlightenment. Know then the Prajna, Paramita, is the great Dharani, the radiant peerless mantram, the utmost supreme mantram, which is capable of allaying all pain. This is true beyond all doubt. Proclaim now the highest wisdom, the Prajna Paramita. Gate, gate, hara gate, hara sungate, bodhisvaha. Gate, gate, hara gate, hara sungate, bodhisvaha. Gate, gate, hara gate, hara sungate, bodhisvaha. The Maha Prajna Paramita Hridaya Sutra.
Good morning, everyone. I would like to thank you all for tuning in, and thank you tech team and a musician who sang very nicely. I am coming to you from the Flint Hills in Kansas, where we have a beautiful, cool, rainy morning. And the earth is so happy to be rained on that she's just going, ah, I needed that. Thank you, skies. So I am rejoicing with the earth today for not being 105 degrees and sunny. So today I'm talking about changes and the old mirror. One of the very first albums I ever purchased was Harry Chapin's song album Changes. The title track, the chorus was, and all the changes keep on changing, and the good old days, they say they're gone. Only wise man and some newborn fools think they know what's going on. But sometimes I think the difference is just in how I think and see, and the only changes going on are going on in me. I found that profound when I was 17. Now at 65, I look back at all the changes, major changes I've done in my life. And I think if I would have had any idea what I was going to be at 65 when I was 17, if I would have done anything different. I don't know. There's been a lot of changes going on in my life, I'll say the last year or so. And it's like, where do I begin? External changes, the lockdown, the election, Black Lives Matter. They're all external changes, external things that changed me. The birth of my granddaughter and the seemingly sudden move away from Grand Rapids, they were much more self-centered changes. Also, my back's been acting up, and I've gained weight, which makes my back hurt more, which makes it harder to get exercise. So that's a real interesting change. But then sometimes I look around at the world, and one of the things Ms. P and I say, we look at each other and say, we're not their target audience anymore. Excepting for the walk-in tubs. It's like I'm beginning to grow into a different target audience. But for the most of the world, I'm not their target audience. And in a way, that's nice. But how have these things changed me? Or have they? During the lockdown, I had the privilege of working with the public, and I was amazed how mean people could be. Ooh, and especially as we got closer to the election. I saw a side of humankind that I did not like. But also, I was amazed how nice people could be, the kindness that came out. And it was that interesting balance of what being stressed out brings in people. And watching George Floyd's murder really changed my thought process. I mean, intellectually, I think I knew it was going on. That hit me in the heart. I never could make it through the whole video. And I'm so happy that that kid, that young girl that stood there and held that camera up for 9 minutes, she got a special prize. That took guts. Could I have done that? I don't know. But that changed everything from going abstract intellectually to a real reality in my heart. Watching my granddaughter with her parents, my son and his wife, wow, I wish every child had 2 loving parents like that. 1 loving parent like that would be just fine. Every child had someone in their life that truly loved and cared for them. I haven't met her in person yet. That will happen Wednesday afternoon when I will finally get to hold my little baby Amelia. Only she's not a baby anymore. And I hope that when she looks at me and when I look at her, the mirror of who I am can be that deeply loving person in her life. I remember my grandmother, my maternal grandmother, and how important she was in my life. So, how do we know if we've changed or not? How do we know if the life we live are changing? We know that our self-perceptions are bad. We just don't perceive ourselves. So, I think, oh, I wish there was a Dharma mirror I could look into. And the one person I always turn to when I want a yes-no answer, have I changed, yes or no? What does it mean? Give me an answer, is Dogen. And if you read Dogen, ever read Dogen, you can chuckle here because Dogen is a person of non-duality, a teacher of non-duality. There is never a yes and no answer. And if you look at me as a teacher, you will definitely see Dogen's influence because I feel it's my job, as soon as you're sure you know something, to poke a hole in it. So, the Shobogenzo, a wonderful book that is worth all $63 worth, that's what it was when I bought it. There's a chapter called The Old Mirror, or Kyokyo, K-Y-K-Y-O. Kyokyo, Kikyo. I don't know, if somebody knows Japanese, they can see it. But this Old Mirror chapter is a fairly long chapter for Dogen. He has a lot to say about mirrors. And mirrors are used a lot in Dharma discussions. They're also used a lot in folk tales and other religious traditions. We all know many mirror stories. Before I go on, I want to sidestep a little bit about mirrors in ancient India. The first bronze mirror was found in Egypt in 4000 BC. So I'm sure they had bronze mirrors in Buddha's time. And when they used to make mirrors, you take either a piece of bronze or stone or something, some almost shiny thing, and rub it and polish it. And a lot of times you polish it with another stone. They were high maintenance and hard to make. And still, you never got a beautiful, clear picture of yourself. But if you study art history, you go back in ancient art, there's mirror backs and mirrors, they were treasured. They were a valuable object. They're not throwaway objects like we are today. Back to Dogen. Dogen's opening statement of this chapter is, what all Buddhas and ancestors have maintained and transmitted person to person is an old mirror. As a teacher, what do you give your students? An old mirror. This is a really deep, multi-layered statement. A mirror just reflects back of who we are. And Dogen, all through this chapter, will talk about mirrors as a barbarian reflects a barbarian, and a Buddha reflects a Buddha. Sounds very familiar. We've all heard this throughout our lives. I was going to say adult lives, but maybe some people heard it as kids. Dogen spends a lot of time discussing how we reflect ourselves back, all through the chapter. For those that haven't heard me talk about Dogen before, I'm just going to say a couple things about Dogen. Dogen is a main teacher of Soto Zen. He's what basically they say brought our tradition to Japan. He was Japanese, he went back to China, studied, came back to Japan and said, okay, I have the real teachings from Buddha. And I will never pretend I'm a Dogen scholar. And I'll never say I understand what he's saying. He is thick. He's a thick read. You can read the Shobo Genzo, and as you read it, remember that some people will spend their whole lives studying one chapter, some scholars. There's a lot of people that will study Uji. Uji is a very popular one to study. They'll spend 30 years just studying 6 pages of Dogen's writing. So I am not a Dogen scholar, and I'm going to tell you what I see when I read it today. And if I came and gave this exact lecture a year from now, I would see different things out of Dogen's chapter. So, okay. That's my Dogen disclaimer. So, what does it mean when things are changing? I feel like things are changing in my life so fast that my mirror is shaking. It's kind of like when you're in a car and trying to get something out of your eye. The mirror is shaking so much, bouncing so much that you can't get a clear vision. That is what I feel my mirror is reflecting back today. And we have to change. It's really sad to be stuck in one set of ideas and demanding that we keep our own views, demanding of ourselves. Nope, I can't change. I believe this, and that's what I believe. You're not going to change my mind. I encountered an economic policy as an undergraduate in economics. It's called the sunk cost fallacy. SUNKCOST fallacy. And that is the more you sink into a commitment, the less likely you are to walk away. That is how people will go to a casino and lose everything. Wow, I've already lost all my cash out of my pocket. I can't leave now. Pull all my cash out of my ATM. Oh, now I've lost everything. I can't leave now. And next thing you know, you throw your car keys on the table. And that's because I've lost so much. I put so much into this, I can't walk away. That also happens with our beliefs. We invest so much into our personal beliefs that we can't change. In my opinion, that might be one of the issues with politics today. It's a big insult to a politician to say they've changed their mind. And sometimes it'd be really nice if someone in charge, no matter what you're in charge of, could listen to all sides and say, oh yeah, you're right. So look, how does looking into the Buddhist mirror, sunk cost fallacies, and changes all fit together today? I'm going back to Dogen, adding my Shobogenzo down here. I'm going to read a few stories. And a lot of these stories you may have heard because Dogen will talk about old Zen koans. A monk at an assembly, Nai Nan Yu, Great Master Dihai asked, when the mirror casts a reflection, where does the light go? That was a monk asked his teacher that. The teacher says, where has the face before you became a monk gone? The monk said in response, how come the mirror does not shine after casting a reflection? His teacher said back, even if it does not shine, there is not a single point of deception at all. This is typical Zen koan. Somebody asks the teacher something, the teacher asks another question. It's kind of question, question, question. The teacher never gives a direct answer. So in Zen tradition, if a student said, when the mirror casts a reflection, where does the light go? The teacher would never say, oh, down the hallway or into your eyes. I mean, it's just ask with another, answer the question with another question. It's to get you as a reader to think. Dogen's comments on this conversation is now use words express the realization that whatever is reflected in the mirror forms images. Although the mirror is neither gold nor jade, beyond illumination or reflection, it still casts reflections. This is the ultimate study of the mirror. Basically what he's saying, you look in the mirror, you see a face, you see what's behind you, there's reflections, but the mirror is not gold or jade. The mirror is just the reflection. And that is a study of the mirror, kind of what happens between your eyes and the mirror. That is a study. And Dogen's definitely saying the mirror is yourself. How we see ourselves. And if you want to read Dogen, he dissects each line of that koan into a full paragraph. It's like, oh, wow. His last statement is, at this very moment, with 100,000 myriad illuminations, each point is deception. Me as a grandma, that's a deception. Me as a kind, caring human, that's a deception. Me as crabby old lady, that's also a deception. Me as a teacher. Where is my face before I became a monk? Where is that face before I became an old lady? Where is that face before I watched the George Floyd murder? It's all 100 points of deception. The Four Noble Truths, what causes suffering? Clinging. I want that face before I became a monk. I want that face after I became a monk. I want to see Buddha when I look at this. All 100 points of deception. Also, at the same time, it's 100 points of truth. Sunk cost fallacy. Clinging brings suffering. I used to dance. I still remember being on stage, being on point. That's the ballet point shoes. Will I ever be on stage on point again? I'm not going to say never, but I think to say, oh yeah, I can go on point again is delusion. My ankles, my knees, my back will say, ha, ha, ha. No, you're never going to be on point. That was 45 years ago and about 70 pounds ago. It's not going to happen. Also, I don't want it to go through the work to make it happen. But that doesn't mean that experiences are not part of me still. When I look into my mirror, there's still that dancer on stage loving it. That's when you look into the mirror. I'm going to read another little thing from Dogen. This is two teachers discussing. Zhua Feng and Zhuan Sha. Zhuan Feng said, if you want to understand the essential matter, it is like an old mirror I have in myself. When the barbarian comes, a barbarian appears. When the Chinese person comes, a Chinese person appears. Zhuang Sha said, what about the moment when you encounter the emergence of a bright mirror all of a sudden? They're talking about enlightenment. A barbarian is, this was written in ancient China. A barbarian is somebody who's just running around. A Chinese person, he's considered as somebody who's enlightened. So the other teacher says, what about the moment you encounter the emergence of a bright mirror all of a sudden? What if you look in the mirror and you see you're enlightened? Zhuang Fen said, both the barbarian and the Chinese person disappear. Zhuang Shang said, I have a different understanding. Zhuang Fen said, how do you understand? Because it's a koan study. Please ask me a question. Because you don't say anything, you just ask questions. What about the moment when you encounter the emergence of what about the moment when you encounter the emergence of being mirror all of a sudden? What is it when you look and you are the mirror? Zhuang Sha said, broken into 100 pieces. So even when you get that moment of enlightenment, you look into your mirror, I've made it, I'm a Buddha. The mirror explodes into 100 pieces. There's me, the crabby person. There's me, the old lady. Somewhere in these 100 pieces, there might be a little sliver that's still enlightened. But as soon as you look and see that mirror, you're broken into 100 pieces. Then they also said, it's like a pearl rolling on a table. Not a fixed, stable thing. If you have a precious object, round objects rolling on your table, you're going to try to make sure this table's solid, still, flat. so you don't lose your pearl. And you know that as more you fight something like that, the harder it gets. One more Dogen story. And this is probably, I think, the most famous mirror story of Buddhism. And you're probably all thinking, why doesn't she say that one? Nan Yu visited Mazu in his hut. Mazu stood up. Nan Yu said, "What are you doing these days?" Mazu said, "I've just been sitting." Nan Yu said, "What's your intention in sitting?" Mazu said, "I intend to become a Buddha." Nan Yu then picked up a tile, that's just a roofing tile, and started rubbing it. Mazu said, "What are you doing?" Nan Yu said, "Polishing a tile." Mazu said, "Why are you polishing a tile?" "I'm trying to make a mirror." Mazu said, "How can you polish a tile and make a mirror?" Nan Yu said, "How can you sit zazen to become a Buddha?" We've all heard that story, and we've interpreted it as just sitting, just meditating is not going to make you a Buddha. But Dogen puts another spin on it. People have been interpreting this story for hundreds of years as encouragement to Mazu. It is not necessarily so. This activity of this great sage is beyond understanding. Without polishing a tile, how can we ever have the skillful means to make a true person? The capacity of making a true person is a bone and marrow of a Buddha. Although it is fabricated, it is the essential furnishing of a house. Without being furniture or equipment, Nan Yu's teaching could not have been transmitted to the Buddha house. That's kind of Dogen. It's awfully hard to listen to Dogen because you have to go back and read it. We have to work. We have to be the furniture of the house to make the Buddha house. And the moment we polish a tile, and we're polishing, and that tile becomes a mirror, Mazu becomes a Buddha. And the moment Mazu becomes a Buddha, Mazu immediately becomes Mazu. And the moment Mazu becomes Mazu, Zazen immediately becomes Zazen. We polish that tile. It's kind of like our Bodhisattva vows. I vow to save all beings. I'm never going to save all beings, but I'm going to keep polishing that tile. Back to Dogen. To activate the work of making a mirror in this way is the endeavor of the Buddha's ancestors. That is what we're doing in our life. That is how we take our practice into day-to-day life. We polish the tile until it becomes a mirror. So, what are we polishing? I wanted to bring this talk when I started writing to Zen in the Future of the West. But that's like polishing mud. The one thing Dogen does say, you can't polish mud to make it a mirror. That's futile. And I thought, the future of Zen isn't in my hand. It's in you guys' hands. Especially all you new teachers. You are the future of Zen. And you will be polishing your mirror for your students in your own particular way. Each person has their mirror. What are you polishing? Zen will continue. We're all just reflecting back to each other. No matter how much we change, no matter how much Zen changes, we are reflecting ourselves. We become the Buddhas and ancestors. Your students will look at you as a Buddha's ancestor. 30 years from now, 50 years from now, 100 years from now, you will be the Buddha's ancestors for the young students there. You do the mirror, you turn the mirror to your students take the mirror, they turn it to their students. That is how Buddhism goes on. Back to Harry Chapin. Only wise men and some newborn fools think they know what's going on. But sometimes I think the difference is just how I think and see, and the only changes going on are going on in me. Harry Chapin was killed in a car accident in New Jersey freeway, 1984. His music is still here, reflecting back his 1973 thoughts. I listen to this very differently than I did over 45 years ago, but it still rings true to me. Dogen said these things about 785 years ago. They've been translated, commented on, written about, studied. But his thoughts are still this broken mirror shining back the Dharma to us. His last comment, how he closed the chapter, was, there may be those who question whether polishing a mirror becomes polishing a tile by mistake. The time of polishing cannot be fathomed by measure of other times. If a time does not become a mirror, a human does not become a Buddha. If you look down at a tile as a lump of mud, you look down on humans as a lump of mud. If a human has a mind, a tile should have a mind. Who knows where there's a mirror that's brought forth and the tile is actualized as a tile? Who knows if there's a mirror that is brought forth with a mirror and actualized as a mirror? You don't know where your mirror shines. You don't know how it will be picked up, how it will be received. You may have that most annoying person you work with. You may think you're just rubbing each other wrong. You're polishing tiles. And all of a sudden, look at that beautiful mirror. You and your spouse may be fighting. All of a sudden, I've been polishing this mirror for 30 years. I thought we were just arguing. We're polishing that mirror. This is Dogen. This last paragraph is typical Dogen. Let's stretch your brain to see if you can really bring that polishing the mirror into your day-to-day life. That's what Dogen likes to do. Many of his, when he gives a particularly hard paragraph, he'll say, study this with vigor, or study this hard, or study this often. Short discussion of non-duality. That's what it is. We polish ourselves, we polish each other, we polish our Sangha. We respect ourselves. We respect each other in that polishing. I'm no longer living in Grand Rapids. I will probably not be giving a lot of Dharma talks anymore, so I thought I'm going to go out with a really thick, hard to understand Dogen and just throw everything on the table. Hopefully, you're all like, I have no idea what she's talking about. I'm going to go pick up some Dogen and read them. Someone else here will have to pick up the Dogen flag because he's a great teacher. And I just really wanted to say, I'm no longer part of the Dharma Council. I'm still here, I'm still a teacher. And my 6 years in Grand Rapids with you guys has been so much fun. You guys are a great group of people. This is a nice Sangha. Hang on to it, take care of each other. And I'm going to close my Dharma talk with something from another tradition that I learned. Merry meet, merry part, and merry meet again. May the circle be open, but unbroken until we meet again. Are we going to take, I forget the order of things. Do we take a quick little 10-minute meditation here, or do we talk? Somebody who knows what they're doing, tell me.
You want to skip to talking?
Yeah, I think I talked an awful long time, so people are probably ready to go home, even though they are home.
All right.
After the talk, you have to do your meditation because we're not doing it here after our discussion. So, questions, comments?